Karen Weitz. Thank you for joining me on the Happy Whole You podcast.
Hey, today is the summer solstice, isn't it?
It
The 21st.
21st, so tomorrow. So what
Yeah.
does the summer solstice mean for those that are like, I don't know what that means?
That is, everything is about the energy behind it. So it's a time for transformation. It's there's the winter solstice in the summer, and one winter is the shortest day of the year, and the summer is the longest day of the year. And there's
Mm,
the energy behind that. So it's a day to reflect on the first half of the year and kind of set intentions for what you want going forward.
I love that. Good. So, I mean, by the time this episode comes out, it'll be past that, but that's really great. So we just know like halfway through the year, we set our intention for the remaining part of the year. And then at the beginning of the year, winter solstice, set that intention.
And it kind of ties into the new moon and um, the moon cycle. So every new moon and full moon, there's the energy behind it. And the new moon, you set the intention for the month. And
Mm.
full moon, you let go of whatever you want to let go of. So you just kind of reflect and write on a piece of paper what you want to bring in, or if it's the full moon, what you want to let go of.
Okay, I like that. Intention is everything, right?
Is everything.
Well, Karen, I wanted to bring you on because we were going to talk about Akashic Records, and you did a reading for me the other day that was really amazing, and I'm so grateful for that time we spent together. I
Okay.
got a lot of value out of it. Can you share with everybody what well, actually, wait, I'm already jumping right in. Can you share with everyone, like, how did you get into the work that you do? Like, what is it that you do with people? What led you here?
Oh, it's kind of a long story, but I honestly was born this way. When I was 5, my grandmother had cancer and she was transitioning, and I can still see it and feel the energy of that day where I was at the door. Everyone was kind of at the door, people going in one by one. And I heard, I don't know if it was my grandmother, but someone said, let her in. So I went in by myself and I saw the light, and I was the last to see her transition. And I saw this beautiful light that they talk about. But of course, I was a child, so I didn't quite know what it meant. And I kind of became a seeker because of that. And interestingly enough, I watched Oprah one year where when she became very spiritual and she had someone talking about the light. And the question was, can other people see the light? And the answer was the children, that they're still
Mm.
connected. And I was like, oh my God, like I knew what I saw. But that now kind of explains it all. And I've always been intuitive. So as a kid, I would know things and thought everyone knew things, but not everyone knew things. But I knew
Mhm.
it as an adult level. So, and I understood that people thought I was a child and didn't have the perspective, but I did. Um,
Mhm.
but from there, I just kind of been seeking, doing it for family and friends. Um, there's these things called clairs. So clairaudient is hearing, clairvoyant is seeing, clairsentient is feeling, and claircognizant is knowing. So I always had a knowing and a feeling. And so like I know something's blue in my mind. If I like were to tell you I saw blue, I would know it's blue, not see it blue.
Mm.
But I also could predict things. And I used to think that it was happenstance. Like I would say, oh, I can predict something, but not always, right? Because I didn't know how to tap into that.
Mhm.
Um, So then kind of later on, I took a course with a friend that was a facilitator teacher training program that taught you all the things of facilitating what you do. And when I was in it, I was like, oh my God, I do that. I know that. So it kind of all came together. And then I kind of decided to do it for as a business and not just for family and friends.
Awesome. So you've known your whole life, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. So then, okay, now when we talk about the Akashic records, can you share with people what are the records? Like, what does that mean? And what do you do in terms of the records?
The records, um, I liken it to a radio station. If you're on 92.3, the other stations are going, but you can't hear them, and you have to turn the knob to get to the next station. So the Records is like a field of information. The Bible calls it the Book of Records, and the other traditions have names for it. And it's every thought, action, deed by everyone, past, present, future. And
Mm,
that sounds so like um, big, but really just think about every thought that you think goes out into the this field, and it's like a library or a record of information. And we know scientifically that energy doesn't go away, it just transforms. So it kind of is um, hovering in this field. Some people say that it's protected by the whales and dolphins. We know they're very magical. Um, but it's not like above, because we always think of everything as above us, really
mhm,
it's just within this field. And the way I tap into it is energetically um, bringing myself to a place of calm and still and kind of listening and feeling when I'm in the record. So it's just really like a library of information. And
mm.
anyone has access to it. It's not just me. Like you can read a book and learn how to do it, but there's um, just like with everything, you have to practice it, and some people have more of an innate ability for it. Like
Yeah.
singing, anyone could sing. Can everyone sing beautifully? And some people naturally don't take lessons and sing beautifully, and then some people take lessons and learn to sing beautifully, and then some just sing in the shower and enjoy it for yourself. So that's how I kind of liking it too. Everyone has the ability, but everyone's not ready for that ability.
Yeah, yeah. So what's the benefit, like, if someone be like, "Well, why would I even wanna tap into these records? Why would I wanna talk to someone who can tap into them for me to give me information?" What's the benefit of it? And then what type of information do you get out of the records?
Oh, okay. It's interesting. A client of mine, I'm also a sound healer, so I was doing a sound bath for a group, and one of the women had heard what I do, and she came up to me and she said, "Well, why should I listen to you?" So I can answer that question, and I said, "You shouldn't. I'm just offering another perspective, and I have the ability to go in to see in the past lives or in this current life habits that um, you keep doing, and maybe you don't have the perspective to see it, or a relationship you're struggling with and you're looking at it from one point of view. And the way I use the records is to track back um, in past lives or in this lives, um, things that may help you see things in a different way.
Hmm.
Sometimes the light goes on right away, like, oh my God, now I see it. And sometimes you have to sit with it, but it's really just offering a perspective and a clarity that maybe you can't come to on your own.
Okay, so this is really insinuating that we have multiple lives,
Mhm.
correct? And so it's not just this lifetime. And there are certain behaviors that we may be repeating in each lifetime that we're supposed to work through or we're supposed to move beyond. Like, what's your
What
perspective on that?
there's so many perspectives on this. So um I do believe that there's past lives, and I've experienced them for myself.
Hmm.
And um and
Tell us
that
more about that. What past lives have you had? I'm just curious.
oh, oh, good question. I was a little boy in India, which I've always been drawn to India, and I'm supposed to go this year. Um,
Oh.
And I listen to Indian chants, and it sounds very like home to me. So
Mm,
um, that, and then I had a really interesting one where I was like, you would call like a homeopath today, or like a holistic doctor, but in a past life, like working with nature. And
mm.
I saw the house, and then I saw this bird, and it was black and white with this black chest, and it was unlike any bird that I've ever seen. And I Googled it, thank goodness for Google. And I saw the bird, and I was like, I didn't make up this bird. Like it was,
Yeah.
so those are the two that stand out.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. That's really cool.
So so I believe that there's many past lives. And what I find for my clients is you end up repeating the same thing until you clear that thing or recognize that thing. So,
Mm,
um, let me think, I'm trying to think of a client. I had a client who was in scarcity, and what scarcity looks like you could have a lot of money and still be in scarcity, because then what you do is you hold on to it. You're afraid to
mhm,
spend, right? You just bank it. And if there are usually people that don't want to give to others, and it's not because they're selfish. It's more of like, I don't know how long I'm going to have it. And I can see in past lives where they had past lives of losing things, money,
mm,
relationships. And then when I can point it out that this is a long time pattern for you, and I always like to invite them to look at their relationship to money, and what is their intention for having the money, because then they're not spending it, they're not enjoying it, they're not giving it away, they're not buying the things that they may want because they buy the cheaper thing, or they go on the menu and pick the cheapest thing, and they're not living fully. So I help them to change their relationship with money so that they can have a fuller life.
mm. That's really cool. That's interesting. I think I worked through that one in this lifetime for sure. Like literally. Yeah, I think I'm probably about 80% through that, the scarcity mindset.
And then sometimes it's using money to like buying things like covers up sitting with yourself. So then you're like buying,
Mm,
buying. So then you're using it in a different way. It's so many layers to it all. And it's
yeah.
individual for each person.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we have different past lives. There's lessons from past lives and things that could be repeating in this lifetime. And it's important for us to work through that. Like, why do we have to work through it? Like, why can't we just keep being the same? Like, what's the point of that?
Well, so many people say, I don't want to have this life again. I want to
Mhm.
not have that scarcity mindset. I want to have better relationship with my um, fiance or my husband. I'm trying to think for myself. There's things working on in a relationship that I keep carrying. Like I had an aunt, I always tell things about myself, but I had an aunt who um, it was kind of toxic in a way, in sense of um, demanding a lot from me. And I started noticing I kept picking friends that had the same characteristics until I
Mm,
realized, oh, I'm repeating that pattern. And so I had to sit with that and clear it for myself so that I don't pick friends like that again. And since I finally figured it out, because I couldn't understand, because sometimes things are dressed up a certain way and they look different when they're the same. And I couldn't
ah,
figure out why I kept getting the same type of friend. And I'd always have one. So it'd always be that one. And once I figured that out, I don't have those kind of friendships anymore. I have like beautiful, loving, sweet, heart-centered friendships. So and so I would say I wouldn't want to carry that into my next life. Again, I don't want to keep working on the same thing. I guess the goal is ascension and higher frequency and higher vibration. When
Mhm.
you talk about like I hate to be religious, but like the Buddha or Christ, there's like a consciousness that come with it called Christ consciousness. It's
Mhm.
not Jesus the Christ, but it's the consciousness, Shiva the Christ. So they all carry this heart-centered consciousness. And so kind of the goal is moving toward that, moving
Mm.
from um, self sense of self to unity consciousness. So we're right in this earth, we are in duality in this what people call the 3D earth, and we're moving toward unity consciousness in the 5D. So it's a moving from that I'm separate from you to that we're all one. And that's
Mm.
where that consciousness come in. So we're kind of going toward that goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, which is like, I mean, in my opinion, that just feels right. Feels more like, I don't know, fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's not having so much, yeah, polarity, not feeling that pull so much of like everything's all good. Let's all work towards it.
And it's kind of hard when we're in a duality, polar
Mhm.
environment because
Yeah.
we're kind of set up that it's everything is about me or myself as opposed to us and we. So everything is like I instead of us and we.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
even when it's us and we as groups form together under whatever group that there is with a common theme is still our group versus the other group,
Mm.
right? So what may look like we is really still I, because it's
Yeah.
the people who think like me against all the people who don't.
Yes. And that's like such an earthly thing. I mean, that is like so ingrained in all of us.
Mhm,
And okay, so what do you think though, like about, 'cause it seems to me, this is how things occur to me,
mhm,
that like there's certain like governments, groups of people that are constantly pushing a divide. Like, why? Like, I don't like, for me, it's very hard for me to, like, understand. Like, if like, I just had a conversation the other day with a couple friends about the wars, plural, going on, and one of my friends is from Iran, and, like, we were just, like, so very different backgrounds, the 3 of us sitting there having a conversation, and our conversation, what was beautiful about it was none of us were telling each other how to think. None of us were telling each other how to feel about it, and none of us were telling each other what we should believe. We were just all sharing perspective and how these wars occur to us
mhm.
and how it makes us feel. And at the end of the conversation, we were just talking about like how great is it that we can actually have an open conversation about this. But the one like the unity of all of us is we were all like essentially, who wants war? Like, if you talk to
Yeah,
people, like, nobody really wants war. Like, if I were to go and talk to some of the Palestinians or talk to, you know, some of the people in Ukraine or even in Russia, like, I feel like humans,
mhm.
we definitely come from love and light. So at what point, like, just like, do we get brainwashed? Like, why like,
We-
why is this happening? Because I don't think at the core of all humans, they really want that. I don't
Well,
know. It's like, tell me what I'm missing here, because it doesn't make sense to me at all. Like, none of it makes sense to me.
for one thing, we've kind of given away our sovereignty in the sense of that we look for the answers outside of us. And
Mm,
so then as a group, then you trust the people giving you the information. And this goes across the board. Um, so then people are getting their information outside and not going into their heart. They're more like in their head about it.
mm,
Um, So I hope my family doesn't listen to this. But my grandmother explained it very well. My grandmother had 11 children. I come from a really big family. And I had just had my first daughter, and I was like, well, how do you handle having 11 children? And she said, I never let two get too close because then they would gang up on me. So it was a
Oh,
control, a power to
oh,
maintain control so that, and I hate to sound like all controlling, like the powers of control, but there is a control aspect to it that if you feel united against a thing, then whatever group of people you're united against, then you feel justified. And then that information is fed to you in a way um, that you start to feel okay about it. And then, I mean, there's stories of people who were even um, like during Nazi times who came back and said, I wish I hadn't done that. Right?
hmm
Like, but in the time that they did it, they were absorbing the energy of the group. So it's a frequency. I guess I would say it's a frequency match. And until you can break out of that frequency, you're going to think the group think. And
mm,
that group think could be for war or it could be against war. Um, I both sides of any war feel justified in their war. Like they
hmm
feel this is the right thing. They can't see the other perspective. But in order to keep that war going and to rationalize it, then they have to think that way. I mean, you kind of have to, right? You have to think that the other person's the enemy. And I guess that goes back to separatism versus unity consciousness.
mm, yeah,
'Cause everything is separate from ourselves. We even medically think of like our gallbladder isn't needed or
right. Yes.
like it has no function, or we have
Yeah, like,
junk DNA. Like, like maybe we don't know what it's used for or how it's
right.
used, but even that our bodies are separate and that medicine, and you can appreciate that being
Yeah,
sick, that
totally.
medicine teaches us that our body is separate from each organ is separate, our skin is separate, treat it separately. You go to the doctor and they treat one thing and they don't
hmm
treat the other. They don't know the sum of all. And so
Yeah.
kind of the the way things have been. And so what a lot of people are trying to do spiritually is move from that consciousness to the unity consciousness, to move the planet, to move the collective toward that way of thinking.
Mm,
It
yeah.
sounds like such a big, but knowing that every person has a responsibility to bring their highest and best self to a situation. And when you do that, one person could shift the room in a good way or in a bad way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's so true, and I think that a lot of people forget how powerful they are,
Mhm.
and power doesn't have to be, like, power in the terms of control. Like, power can be such a beautiful, light, inviting thing, and, people forget that they can open their heart and bring people together, and there's so much that we can do that I think we forget, and I think you said in our session, I don't know, I think this is what you said, but you said it's about remembering,
Yeah.
right? It's about remembering who we are. This life isn't about necessarily like learning all the facts and learning all the science and learning all the things, which I'm guilty of because I'm a sucker for all that. I'm like, I need to know more.
Yeah.
When really, I need to just remember who I am from a soul level and what I came here to do. And when I sit in that energy, I don't feel fear. I don't feel worry. I don't feel those things.
Yeah. What happens is that there's so many layers that it's like the stories that we're told. The My favorite one is when you get enjoy your childhood now, because when you become an adult, it will be hard.
Yeah,
Who is that true?
yeah, no,
But
but we've been told that.
we've been told that. So what happens at 18 or
Yeah.
21? That programming kicks in and like, oh,
Mhm.
now I'm in the hard part.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be. So there's all these stories that we come with our culture, the media, we do to ourselves, from our family. You're labeled as the shy child or the smart child, and then you start to believe these things, and then you live these things. So it becomes a fulfilling prophecy about yourself. Um,
Mhm.
but the self that came in as a baby with all the hopes and dreams, and everyone smells you, and you're so sweet and pure. We are still that. It's just that now we have layers of life stories placed upon us. And once we let go of those stories, we can remember who we were when we came in as a baby, as
Mm.
from the past life. So it's really getting rid of those layers and those stories. And I tell you, sometimes it's hard to let go of the stories.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, we hold on to them to justify why our life is the way it is.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah, that's, yeah, and it comes at a cost. So anything that we're complaining about that persists in our life, we're allowing it to persist. We're allowing it to stay. And usually we're allowing it because we're using it as justification for something. Um, or it's interesting how we are. Like
Yeah.
we totally have a choice in everything. And then we think that we don't.
I had a client just the other day who said something like, I've been working on this for a long time to make a decision. And really, the decision can be made in this moment.
Mm,
But then it's all the stories behind it, and we have to work through all the stories before we can say no more. They
yeah.
say that from the time, like, you need to get a divorce, and it's time for you to get a divorce or break up, you can be in it 10 years, rationalizing it, and then 10 years later, you finally get the divorce. But you knew 10 years before that.
Mm,
But then the stories of what that means to get a divorce. How will I survive? What will my children think? What will my family think? Now I'm this, now I'm that. And then all of that like stretches out the decision.
wow.
I know. It's powerful, isn't
It
it?
really is. It's like all of us are like, I mean, I wouldn't say it's wasting time
Yeah.
because we learn from it, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, man, if we just listen to our soul and our instinct and we actually acted on it,
Yeah.
like what is possible? I don't know. It's like it's
Well,
crazy.
sometimes with my readings, because I do intuitive readings and Akashic, so it's not always Akashic, but and sometimes it's just a conversation to get you to see it from a new perspective. Because we
Mhm.
just taught there's path A, B, or C, but there's like infinite quantum
Yeah.
width there. So sometimes you just need someone to help you tweak it and see it from a different perspective. And
Mhm.
sometimes I tell a lot of people, like, I might be the first one to tell you something and you throw it out. And then by the time the third time, it's like, oh, now I get it. Or have you like had a book that you bought and like it made no sense, and then maybe you
Oh
pick it
yeah.
up later and you're like, what's different? It's just that you're ready for that information.
Mhm. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I read one, okay, so there was this book, one of my favorite authors is Michael Singer, and he
Mhm.
wrote the book The Untethered Soul.
Love that book. It's one of my favorite.
So good. But I first was exposed to the surrender experiment, one
Okay.
of his books. I was like, what is this? Like I
Mhm.
pushed it to the side, couldn't even, And then life happens and I go through some different things and then I read The Untethered Soul and I'm like, "Oh my gosh. This is like everything. Like, I was like, "Oh, wow." And then I'm like, "What other books does he have?" And then I realized I already had the surrender
Oh my
experiment,
gosh.
and I'm like, "Huh." So I start and I'm like, "Oh, this is so good." I'm like, "Why was I not getting this before?" I like I'm like, "This is so crazy." But yeah, like, that happens to us all the time because we get introduced to things, and it's almost like that seed, and
Like,
then we end up coming back to it, and then it makes so much sense, you know? And it's like, I mean, I see it every day in holistic health. I
yeah,
mean, it's like people I think we truly know that we can heal and we know what we really need, but we've been programmed with all this stuff about, oh, you got to go to this doctor, you have to take this pill, you have to get this done, or whatever it is. And we do all those things and we still aren't well.
right.
And then they come back and then it's like you give them the information that they knew a long time ago,
Yeah,
but it was like it didn't register, and now it's, like, being introduced to them again, and it
yeah.
could be introduced in the same way, and they're like, "Oh, yeah. Like, I know what I need to do, like, I need to do these things," and then they're all on board and ready to go. So
Well, I'm gonna give you another perspective. So just that way that you do that, that's how our higher self or our guides or the creator sends us those little seeds.
mm,
And it helps us to find our way back to ourselves.
oh,
So we get these little lessons and opportunities um, to grow from, and sometimes it seems so horrible, and sometimes it is so horrible. But then you
mhm,
look back and you think, "Oh my God, how much did I grow or change from that?" So every opportunity for growth and change sometimes are those little seeds put in front of us. And when I look at what I do now, from my grandmother, there's seeds I didn't even recognize, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay, that happened, and that happened, and that happened."
yeah.
So there's like this divine presence guiding you so that from the time you're born to the time you transition to your next life, there's growth and expansion. But some
Mm,
people don't grow and expand in many lifetimes, and that's
mm,
okay too.
yeah, yeah, who are those people? Like, what are they doing every day? Like, I don't
You know
know.
what? It's kind of like the Matrix. They're just comfortable in the status quo. They don't want to
Yeah.
go to the store, any other store. They don't want to go outside their neighborhood. They live the same 6 months over and over and over, and they're comfortable. And when you try to pull them out of that, they're not comfortable and not going to enjoy it. So
Mm,
they're not going to have the growth and expansion from the kind of simplicity of that because they're not ready.
mm,
So that's why we can't judge like a homeless person on the street, whatever led them to there. Like all you can do is show compassion and not judge them.
mhm.
You can't judge anyone. I have to work on that too. I'm like, I saw that coming. Why didn't she listen to me? Specifically with family and close friends.
Oh, yeah.
But everyone has their path and their journey, and I try to support that journey and path and make it a little bit easier and a little bit clearer.
Mm. Yes, the paths that we take.
And at any time you can switch your path.
Yes.
I mean, you have the power to choose, but we think we
Mhm.
leave this job or, you know, leave this home or this state. And then there's people that jump right in and move and like, wow, like you just keep moving. So we just have the power to choose. And sometimes we don't realize that.
Yes. Yeah. The power of choice is amazing,
Yeah.
especially when we, like, recognize that we have it, for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what about, like, so all of us have an intuitive ability.
Mhm.
So if people are like, "Well, I don't." Like, I don't even like, what does that even mean? Like, what are some tips you have to, like, help people remember, like, who they are and, like, just getting back in touch with their soul purpose?
for me, one of the main ways that I do it is through sound, because sound has a way of tuning you like a tuning fork.
Mm.
So I use that I do sound baths, and I use Reiki for that, and it just kind of balances your energy. But for intuitive, I would say um, it's more about trusting that it's about letting go of the story about what will happen. So you have this intuitive, like, I think this guy wrote the book, The Gift of Fear. Like you go into an elevator and someone's kind of creepy on, and you don't want to go in, but you're worried about what they will think. Like, oh, I'm going to go in anyway
Oh,
because that person's going to think something about me, or you push aside your that gut feeling of that's not safe. And if you just listen to your gut and let the elevator close, so many people doing that will save themselves a lot of trauma because they didn't listen. So really listening is more about not worrying about what people think about what your choice. I think that's where the stories come in. So intuitively, if you know something, trust it. And I will say, I don't know. I just intuitively, I'm told not to do that. And people are used to me saying that. But for everyone, like just sitting with yourself and listening. And that's where meditation comes in, because meditation gives you the opportunity to listen. They say that prayer is talking to God and meditation is listening.
Mm.
So being still, sit still and know that I'm God. And I'm not religious, but these are scriptures that like really spoke to me when I heard that. Like, wow, sit still. That's what you do. You sit out in the garden. You sit. I always tell people, because I have so many clients that are used to getting up, doing the thing, rushing to work, rushing to the grocery store, rushing in cooking, and they don't get that time to sit. So how can you tap into your intuition if you don't sit still? So I say, when you get out of work and you get in the car, take 5 minutes and sit there. Then go to the grocery store, get back in, go home. Before you walk in, take 3 minutes to just center. And then go in, and then maybe take 5 minutes, have some tea and start cooking. And those 5 minutes will add up. And in the shower, everyone gets that download, that information, right? Oh, I was in the shower. And then I realized it's just because you're still in the shower, and then the water helps. So
Yeah.
taking those moments, I was in the sauna this morning and I had this whole like, oh my God, now I know what I'm going to do. And I'm hosting a workshop and I couldn't quite come up with the thing that I wanted to do. And it just came to me because I was still. And then I trusted. So I would say that's the main thing.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's so great. And you're right, the shower, a lot of things. I get a lot of things when I go for a walk,
Yeah.
'cause I just walk. I don't listen to music. I don't, you know, just like that's when the information comes in.
Well, because then you're also listening to nature, and that's the music.
Mm, yeah.
But when there's a concert of nature that's helping to bring you back to balance.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But so many
important.
people don't take the time to do that.
Mhm.
So really just that's if any message is taking the 5 minutes between things and see the improvement of the quality of life you have.
Mm. I love that. And I think everyone can relate. I mean, I'm a mom and I can get busy and go from one thing to the next to the next.
Mhm.
So it's like I'm constantly trying to be very present. And when I pick up my kids, be very present with them. And, when I wake them up in the morning, be very present with them. Even though it's like, we gotta go. So I've been catching myself more in those moments. So I love that tip to just take 5 minutes, take 3 minutes, and just reconnect, center yourself, get quiet. So good.
Yeah.
All right, Karen. So where can people find you, book a session with you, connect with you?
Well, my website is www.allindivinetime.com, which I created before I really expected to do anything with it. So, so that's kind of how I set that intention for this. But because I believe everything is all in divine time. And
Mm,
it tells you all about me and all the things I do. I do Reiki, I'm a Reiki Master. I do just energy work in general, just anything to help bring you back to balance. I kind of combine it all. And everything is Zoomable. So that's the good thing that came out of that time where we couldn't see each other, is that we have learned to go virtual. And so I can do.
hmm. Yeah. So good. Are you on Instagram?
I am on Instagram. It's just my name, Karen Weitz. And I post quite a bit about my travels in Shasta. Mount Shasta is my favorite place to go, so I'm always hosting,
Oh,
and that's about it.
awesome. I'll have to get to one of your retreats. 'Cause
Uh,
we're in the same time zone. That's always a plus.
yeah.
We're
A
actually only a
magical
few.
place. I'll just share with you, Mount Shasta is the root chakra of the earth. Like we have, it's the most
Mm,
connecting place. So trees and water and connecting to yourself.
yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, Karen, thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, I greatly appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.